So let it be written. So let it be done. This is Tabletop Terrors. I always want to pause and let you do it.
And let me do a stupid thing, yeah.
And Multifarious Geeks. So we're going to be talking about new project. I don't know. A new channel, a new project, a new. It's kind of a new era where Tabletop Terrors is not going away. Step 0. Mm-hmm. That's not going to happen. Tabletop Terrors is going to continue strong. We're going to talk about RPGs, but Multifarious Geeks is if Tabletop Terrors were scaled back and made for anything geeky at all. And we're going to watch the chat here. James, are you pulling up the chat? That's probably what you're doing.
Ethan says, glad to see you guys again. Very glad to see you too.
Ethan, Slancha.
To give everyone an idea of where Tim and I have been, not really that we were anywhere, but I recently bought a house. I think I've lived here a couple of months now, 3 or 4 months. I was going to say, well, how many times did I pay my mortgage? 4 months. And I started doing Sunday lunch where I invite everybody over. Everybody pitches in, but I cook everybody, my family. And it kind of got bigger and bigger. Today we had probably 12 people here.
That's insane.
And we cook a big lunch. But Tim and I used to work on Sundays between 3 and 6. It is 5 o'clock now. And usually we haven't been super strict about making sure that we get started on time. We're going to be better about that now. But the idea is we're making lunch, hanging out, just having a good family time. And we have been for probably the past 6, 7, 8 Sundays. So that's mostly where we've been. But we wanted to come back because it's exciting.
It is. And so one of the things we're going to do, and we're going to do it very late out there, is we're going to film the process. Meaning, in the past we'd be like, okay, we're going to make a logo, and then we're going to make a video, and then we're going to release it all. It's like, no. What we've learned is that not only ourselves, but people are interested in the process of what does it take to launch a new YouTube channel. What do you do? What do you decide on? So we haven't decided on a logo. We haven't decided on.
Would you say that's true?
Absolutely true. Yeah, okay. But the idea is that we have this concept of Multifarious Geeks, and we didn't talk this through. I have a bunch of notes on my phone that I'm going to run by James, but the idea is that we're not interested in figuring it out first and then doing. We're going to do and figure it out as we go. But I kind of want to talk about, and we'll answer any questions you have, throw any questions you have in there.
I just want to tell you real quick, if you could just make sure your computer's muted. I see that it's not, but at any time, any sound could happen.
So I think system sounds are. So let's look.
You think that.
Let's see.
I'm just saying something's going to happen. Not super important. But Jeremy, well, let's see. Rob Daniels said he missed us. We missed you too.
Miss you too.
Jose Soto, same thing.
Miss you. Rob, miss you, Jose.
Yeah, Warmaker 777, long time no see. Jeremy said he wants to come. Jeremy, if you're ever in the area on Sunday and we're doing lunch, bring $10 and you're invited. That's kind of like the door fee.
It really is. I have to pay $10. I pay for my wife, and it's just to cover the ingredients and everything like that.
Yeah. Today we made zuppa toscana, kind of like Olive Garden. It's a sausage and kale soup that they have at Olive Garden. My mom wanted, and I did a chicken Florentine that came out.
It was killer.
Great. Super simple, but
very,
really
very good.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I love that Josh Bingham says, I love the fact that you guys show the process. Yeah, and we're going to be cross-pollinating the channels, obviously. And, we're going to just talk through, like, this was the idea that I had, and I wanted to throw this at you and see what you think about this, which is I basically want to document the process of making not just a channel, but eventually what I would like to do is use this as a vehicle for all of the different things that we've wanted to make that were geeky over the years that weren't tabletop RPGs.
Yeah.
So comic books, different things like that.
I was going to say, what I think a lot of people don't know is we started an RPG YouTube channel, but before that, kind of started a project. It wasn't a YouTube channel, and at the time we didn't know a quarter, an ounce of what we know now.
That's true.
About everything. But basically, we have always wanted to sort of do geeky stuff. We can talk so much about stuff. We would find ourselves having conversations that we now know that if we were to have them on camera, some people might actually be interested.
Right.
And we love RPGs and we play a bunch of RPGs, but we thought it'd be cool to be able to, like you said, have a much broader range of things we can talk about. just the same way, basically, that we talk about RPGs on Tabletop Charts.
Exactly. So the Tim and James banter, all the nonsense, but instead of it just being focused on tabletop games, it could be talking about the newest Predator movie or specific things that improve our quality of life. Like, hey, this is the sound streaming service that I'm using and here's why. And, you know, one of the things we love are things like factoid triggers and debunking myths and different things that we can have conversations about that I'm really excited. But what I think would be really cool is that as we go through, some of the ideas that I had were, let's say we are discussing something that, so a comic book. I've always wanted to make a comic book.
Yeah.
We will document the process of like, all right, cool. So here's the character, here's the story. Let's talk through, similar to how we do with tabletop RPGs and how we make our books, just explaining to you how we're going through the process.
Yeah.
And then maybe at the end of that, have a comic book. But you can have now the full archival documented footage of how we made that comic book or webcomic or whatever else that it is. So a few things I want to ask you. I got a bunch of notes. Basically, we need to decide on a logo, which I'm a huge logo fan, so I want to figure out exactly what that is. I don't know what it should look like. And then just kind of talk about some basic pillars of like, hey, this is kind of what we're about and this is what we're trying to do. Is there anything you want to throw out there?
Ethan had a question,
Sure.
Not necessarily related to this, but he said, I'm so excited for the heist type of gameplay we discussed about a month ago with baubles and artifacts. Will that be covered in Dragon Grin or another book? That is something that will be in a Dead Man's Guide to Dragon Grin. What's it called? The
Arkans.
Arkans, yeah, Arkans.
I was going to say, I'll do you one better. I don't know if you've pre-ordered the book. If you've pre-ordered the book, that full system is available as a playtest right now. So if you've pre-ordered the book, or if you have, if you backed the book at any level, that is called the Arkan playtest, and you can download the rule. It's like 8 or 10 or some pages.
To be clear, I don't think this is open to everyone. It was open to just people for 2 weeks, but now, yeah, this is now open to everyone.
So I am wrong. You're right. Sorry. Hey, I got good news for you. You don't have to buy anything. The playtest is open.
Yes,
for you.
so it will be a Dead Man's Guide, but I dropped the link in the chat. It's
sign up there.
Yeah, you can sign up
and
there.
It's free.
You'll need an account on our website, and then you go there and you put in your information and you agree to not share it with people, stuff like that. And then you can check out the Arkans playtest.
Hey, Jake from Metadoes here.
He loves reskinning Arkans as Archons. We're okay with that. I also like Ribbit because he's really cool. But yeah, Rob Daniel says buy it anyway. That would also be very cool.
That'd be cool.
You can pre-order it on our website, absolutetabletop.com.
Yes.
And the Arkans, a more fleshed out version will be in the book, basically, with what we learned from the playtest.
Yes. So Multifarious Geeks, I see a podcast where we talk long form. I see shorter YouTube videos. I even see...
Sorry, something that somebody brought up and I was going to answer in here, but we should instead say. Quad Gaming asks, is the new channel live? The new channel is live.
It is
technically.
live.
In the description of this, you can click to see it, and there's a subscribe link.
You can subscribe.
So if you're curious, we'll start, like Tim said, we're going to do some cross-pollination, but we will, for non-RPG related stuff, start going live and making videos for that channel.
Correct.
So subscribe if you are interested in that, and you can find that in the description.
Yes. And I actually have seen some people subscribing now, which is awesome. And so be sure to hit the bell when you subscribe so you will get notifications when we go live. But I even see maybe moving to Switch.
Moving to the Nintendo Switch, guys. He's always been a Wii U man, but he's finally upgraded to the Nintendo Switch.
No, but I was thinking maybe moving to Twitch to do these kinds of live streams, and then keeping our YouTube for more middle to short form content.
Yeah.
Of like, because the thing is, James and I are learners. We are people who are lifelong learners. We always want to learn a new thing. And so let's start with this. Right now, the catchphrase or the tagline for the channel is fascination ad infinitum, which basically means infinite fascination. I kind of see it as like Top Gear for geeky stuff.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Where we just do crazy stuff. There's really no rhyme or reason other than it's something that we're fascinated with. We attack it with our same geeky angles using a language of geek references and just kind of the people that we are.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of about us and the idea, sort of our lifestyles as geeks and how that relates, but it will be very broad, like you said, in the sense that we can cover whatever it is that we want, and not necessarily feel constrained or feel even more beholden to people. Like, okay, but you want, you know, some people come here for RPG stuff. We want a place where we can put our non-RPG stuff so people can still see it. We do have a few things in the chat, I think you see.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jake makes a good point. He says, why not both? I've been streaming simultaneously to both platforms for a month. Capture both audience. It's fine with me.
Yeah.
And I can get you on that. I don't know if you're using Restream.io or what you're using, but
exactly. And
yeah, we're open to all that.
Yeah. As Tim said, we are, you know, as he mentioned earlier, this is us documenting the process. We haven't really talked about that. That does make sense. So basically, we will probably do both. We'll have reasons for both, but the idea is we want to make sure we're getting as much as we can out of each platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you asked, Quad Gaming asked if Twitch saves the videos. They do for a little bit of time, and I think that allows us to move them to YouTube or highlight them. There's a lot of different things, but in the same respect,
sure,
like you said, if we stream to both, it'll have one area. You're
going to see more social media use out of Multifarious Geeks because of the style that it is. So we've already reserved. There's going to be a Snapchat and Instagram. All the major players essentially are going to be there because we want to use those different platforms for the content that they were made to be used for. So this is a great example of what I think. Jose Soto says, when are we getting a 2D tabletop fighting game, LOL? So I want to have a series that's called We Make Our, and it would be We Make Our 2D tabletop fighting game.
Yeah.
We'd go through and talk about what do we like about that style? What do we not like? What would we do? More so than it's not just going to be a podcast where we review and talk about geeky things, but I think apply our aptitude for creating things and showing people that along the way too. I think that's really important to me. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, exactly. And what I've learned, like, okay, so for example, one of my favorite things, and Matt Click does this a lot. He will tell me about something that he recently purchased or like a website he found, and it will kind of change my life in a small way, but like ripples in a pond, like, oh, now I can do this and this and this. I love that kind of stuff. So it's the same kind of thing where if I discover like, oh, you guys really got to try this. It's free or really cheap and it'll change how you do X. And that's the sort of thing where I'm like, yeah, it's our lives, but sort of like, hey, this is what we discovered and this is how cool it is and stuff.
I love that. And so here's what I want to do for that. I want to put that into a big idea. Here's the big idea. Geeky explanations of the best, most efficient way to do something, or tools or products, shared references, whatever, like you're talking about. Yeah. I want to document the process, and I want to put that into something called the Multifarious Codex, Geekery as Life. Volume 1, what streaming service should you use and why?
Yeah.
Basically, all the cool stuff that we talk about, I want to, even if it's just a Word doc or a Google Doc online, I want to just document it and then have people can comment and add on it. And basically, I mean, essentially I'm describing a wiki, but the idea is I think this Multifarious Codex would be a really good boilerplate thing if someone's like, hey, check this out. It's like a mixture of geek stuff and life hacks and show recommendations and the order you might want to watch a specific show or avoid this or things like that.
Yeah,
does that make sense? I think coming up with the Multifarious Codex would also be fun. And then you could distribute it. Hey, download this, get into it, go to the website, look at this, click these links. Here's what you do. This is the starter kit if you're buying a smartphone and want to stream from it or whatever.
Yeah. And so Jake asked a question that we covered at the beginning before a lot of people were here, but specifically he asked, is this a Tabletop Terrors rebrand or something separate? This is something completely separate that we're talking about here for the first time, kind of figuring out. But the important thing we mentioned was Tabletop Terrors isn't going away
at all. It's still going to be here.
The whole thing. Yeah. The idea is we just we've wanted to do something like this for a while, and now we feel that now is the time. Basically.
Right.
So it will be something separate.
So the thing is that we were having to shoehorn non-tabletop topics into Tabletop Terrors. What this will allow us to do is talk about movies where it will be more expected, talk about video games, talk about a lot of different geeky stuff that we use, but also how we're creating things and our processes and how we're managing our schedules to do this sort of thing, documenting the process of how do you start from scratch with a YouTube channel and what's the next step and what will we do and how are we going to post videos and that sort of stuff. Some of it will be documented here.
Exactly. Yeah. It will really just be like, again, we don't know exactly, but I like the idea of all the little things that have, like I said, that's one of the biggest things to me is a lot of little things that change your life over time that some people don't know about or have heard about but don't really know or haven't given it a shot. It's like our personal recommendation, like, no, you've heard about it everywhere, but you should definitely try X.
Exactly.
Or
here's a big myth, and I'm going to throw stuff in there like, so this is probably where we'll slide. We have a weight loss group called Minotaur.
Yeah.
And it's like Geek Fitness. Slide this under, multi-geeks.
Exactly. In fact, Aaron said, when we get in them Minotaur fitness shirts.
There you go. And that's the idea is like, look, I've had a weight loss journey. I've lost 50 plus pounds. Being able to debunk myths and talk real about like, hey, this is what works. Yeah, I drink diet soda. It works for me.
Exactly.
I limit it to a certain amount. I watch the sodium intake, but just talking real about what's worked for me. We've published 20 plus books with Absolute Tabletop. We've done a few successful Kickstarters. Talking about those things and then leveraging it into, I mean, look, this is big talk, but eventually I would love it if this grew into, hey, check out our comics, check out our web series, maybe even check out our movie. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
Growing into that direction. I feel like this is a good way to start and get out there and just start doing some of that stuff.
Yeah. Another thing is it's Tim and I are brothers, but we also have two other brothers. And we love the idea that we could get them in on it as well, because they love comics, they love movies, they do all the same stuff. And not only would I love to learn from them how you do this, how you do that, and potentially teach them, but they are a lot like us. And I think that we have really good chemistry, and I feel like people might be interested in watching that.
Right. So an example is we were having a conversation at our family lunch today about which online comic book service should you use and why. Should you use the DC version? Should you use Marvel Unlimited or Comixology, and the benefits and which comics are available? And if you do use Marvel Unlimited, is it a downside that they are very strict about how many logins you can have?
Yeah.
Even to the point to where on my own PC in my house, it was kicking me off my phone, and talking about that stuff. And then more than anything else, get your recommendations and curate this. What do you use for online comics? Are you torrenting them? Is there a website you're using? Like,
yeah, do you go to the store and buy them?
Go and buy physical comics. Do you support a local comic store? And if so, why? And just all of that stuff, and just curate that and just put it out there, because it's tough to shoehorn that into tabletop RPGs, bottom line.
Yeah, which sometimes we would try to do because we wanted people to know. And for me, it's like when I learn something cool like that, or I find something or come up with an idea, I want to share it with people, but we didn't. We made a channel about tabletop RPGs and then realized that people liked hearing what we had to say and were interested in watching, but we also had all this other stuff that didn't fit there. And it was almost like we didn't have an outlet for it. And something we talked about on the Tabletop Terrors channel is sometimes you need an outlet for that kind of stuff.
Exactly. So Tabletop Terrors will not go away. In fact, we have some big stuff happening with Absolute Tabletop, some new Tabletop Terrors branded books and the videos that are going to go along with that stuff. And we're working with Heroic Maps. Like, we have a lot of cool stuff going on that front. But like, here's an example. This is the kind of video that I would want to do. Do you know what umami is?
Yeah.
It is like an extra flavor.
Exactly.
That blew my mind. I just learned that. I've heard the word umami is a separate new flavor in addition to salty, spicy, sweet, and all that stuff. I want to talk about what is umami. And this would probably be like a what?
Well, specifically to take it a step further, what is umami and how do you leverage that knowledge into making your own cooking at home better?
Exactly. And we love facts and factoids. Yeah. So the YouTube content there would probably be long form content just like this, but there would also be shorter, punchier, sort of like cut videos, a little more polished and edited, where it was like giving you fun stuff to talk about at parties, or like whatever,
interesting stuff,
factoids, myths, this versus this, what's the difference between this and this, common misconceptions.
A big part of the reason we do Sunday lunch, and my family's always like, oh, they feel bad because it destroys my whole kitchen and every dish in my house is dirty. But I get to cook an interesting meal that we choose every week, and I just get better every time. I feel like I'm okay. I have pretty good concepts. But the idea is I love doing it, and it's the same kind of thing where I'm like, I've learned a ton of little stuff. Like you said, the umami, just knowing some of the concepts can help you the next time you make scrambled eggs. make them way better by this little thing or that, or
Dude,
I tried
exactly.
these 3 recipes and this is what I found.
Sure.
You know, and yeah.
So here's a great one. We also have discussions and opinions on various things. So here's another one. I just came up with a series idea. I want to call it 1v1 Me IRL. Right? So 1v1 Me IRL. And here's the idea. We don't specifically take opposing sides on on accident. We take it on purpose. And here's the idea. So it'll be like this. Diet soda will give you cancer. 1v1 Me IRL. One of us does research on whether it will, one of us does research on whether it won't. And it's not necessarily to make you choose, but it's to educate you and make your own decision. I love crap like that.
Yeah, exactly. Just to see where all of this side comes from, because a lot of times something like that, a 1-sentence fact like that comes from a lot of different stuff and a misconception. Like, I'll give you a little taste. As far as I know, and we would obviously research this, MSG and its somebody was asking me about this the other day. Why does it say at every Chinese place that they don't use MSG? Because at some point they did use MSG a lot, and I think somebody of, sort of some influence had Chinese food, felt bad the next day, attributed to MSG, and without scientific study and potentially even kind of faking scientific study, made a bunch of people think that it was the MSG that did it. Right. So everybody was against that.
They were like, MSG is bad.
But that has lived on. So that came from somewhere. So it's interesting to give you the information of like, well, why do people think that?
And
this is why. To
me, and this is where a content strategy comes into play as far as getting views and streaming. So 1v1 Me IRL, MSG is awesome. Okay. And that would be the thing where it's like, I say, no, MSG is bad. And you say, no, it's awesome. But then that is the same week that we do the Umami podcast episode or the short form YouTube video, where it's like it all kind of just synergizes and it's just interesting. That's why it's fascination ad infinitum. It's like we're fascinated with so many things and geek stuff. Like, did they go too far in Alien Covenant? Explaining stuff. How was the new movie The Predator? And just discussing it with you and say, well, hey, should you spend your $10 or 12 or 14 or whatever on seeing this movie, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And just having those Tim and James conversations. Yeah. Tons of non sequitur, frosty, dumb jokes.
Exactly. Yeah, ridiculous.
We can do so much more in an open format without having to tie it into tabletop RPGs, that I truly believe that our tabletop RPG stuff is going to get better.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we have an outlet for so much other stuff that it's going to be way more focused and dedicated.
So, and exactly, like you said, I feel like we will just be able to get to talk about so much stuff that we used to. We came up with like off-topic segments on Tabletop Terrors
just so we could talk about it. Exactly. Now instead, it's like no.
Yeah. And did you have more notes? Basically,
I do have a few more notes, but one thing is, so a couple people have said some really nice things. First of all, thank you. Several people, we're getting tons of notifications of subscription, but Josh Brigham says the Codex idea sounds so useful. Exactly. I would download it. Like, yeah. What should I, like basically geeky life hacks. But then Jake from Any Terrain Domain says, dope. Rob Daniel says, this is going to be a top channel. Thomas Carpenter says, it'll take some time, but I can totally see this being big and successful. I also get comics from my local comic shop. That's awesome. And so the one thing I was going to say is that it's like, I haven't seen many episodes of Good Mythical Morning, but it would be like, take a little bit of that Good Mythical Morning flavor and mash it up more with like a little more Tabletop Terrors, heavy metal, goofball, speaking from the heart, less scripty sort of stuff.
With a sprinkle of things you might not have known with my British counterpart. What's his name? I can't remember his name.
Chauncey Butterbear.
But Things You Might Not Have Known, I think is what it's called, is one of the best YouTube channels in the universe if you just want to get lost.
See, that's what I want.
It reminds me of that.
I want to have videos where there's plenty of that, like clickbait candy, but make it so that it's good. Where you finish watching it, you're like, wow, that's useful. I can use that. I can take that. Yeah. Like you said, if we talk about umami, it's like, hey, and here's how you can use it in your cooking for the next week and just spice things up. And then maybe do a video, because it's about not caring what the topic is.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just about going, no, let's document the process. You're living a geeky life. We're living a geeky life. What's the best stuff?
Exactly.
In your opinion, in my opinion, let's talk about it. Very similar to how we do with Tabter, but slide it over to broadening the category.
Ethan asked, you guys have all sorts of good ideas. Would you be bouncing these ideas off the community or other content providers, or would this just be with Tabletop Terrors? So to be clear, this is a separate channel that we're going to be doing, a separate YouTube channel, but it will be run very similar to the way we do Tabletop Terrors, where we would ask questions. We would absolutely want input from other people. I don't know necessarily about other content providers, but like I said, we're going to want to get our brothers in on it.
Sure.
Somehow, potentially involving Matt and Barker at some point. They're very close friends of ours. Definitely. They have very similarly, very smart insights. So definitely, we're not really sure what this thing looks like completely yet. We're going to kind of document finding that out. But it certainly won't be in a vacuum. We'll absolutely be the same, posting in on Facebook and asking questions and doing live streams, all kinds of stuff.
Correct. Thomas Carpenter says, it's like an honest and genuine Nerdist.
Kind of like that. I don't know much. I listen to podcasts that are on the Nerdist network. There are a couple, but I haven't actually listened to the Nerdist podcast. So
right.
I can't necessarily speak to that. But.
And it'll be, honestly, it'll be all about authenticity, capturing moments. So it's not going to be like the best produced all the time. And we've come to reconcile the fact that that's fine.
Yeah.
I would rather film a video in my kitchen and capture something really cool and then share it. And rather than say, okay, let's script it, let's plan it out.
Yeah, let's make sure this is what we're going to talk about. You can't say that. That's not a topic.
Do you know, even a year ago, 30 days ago, there is no way I would have gone live without a logo.
Yeah.
Right now, the YouTube channel has no logo, no banner. You know why? I don't know what the logo should look like yet.
Yeah.
And
to speak to that, Rob Daniel says, I really enjoy peeking behind the curtain and seeing the process. More than that, I'm interested in the things that you two are interested in, so this sounds like a winner to me.
Boom.
That's what we learned is we would do what Tim described, where we would sit down and we wouldn't script it because because Tim and I can't follow a script. That's what we learned. But specifically, we would come up with our idea and we would do a take like, okay, this is the part where you say this. And those videos were fine, but it took us a very long time. But we eventually landed on, why don't we just sit in front of the camera and talk because it's way better that way? And people responded so much like, that's what we want. Stop doing all that other stuff.
And then it was like a revelation to me, which is so crazy to think. We are so much better when we have a topic and we're talking to each other.
Exactly. That's a
so meaning, of course, we're going to engage you. You're the reason that this is all happening. But speaking specifically to the fact that when we just talk to the camera, it was abysmal. It'd be like, okay, now we're going to go to the tabletop. And it's like, instead, it's like, hey, man, here's what's up. That's why we didn't talk about this stuff beforehand.
Yeah.
Me talking to you. And it sounds so stupid. But, hey, Cassie.
Cassie's going to come in and grab paint. It's in there in a box.
The
white one's in the other room.
She's going to huff it.
She's going to huff it.
James is Cassie's significant other. Let's see if you have any other. Oh, Aaron Gnome says, if other people get pods or create content, could they become part of the Multifarious network, like books, art, podcasts? I would be totally open to that.
Yeah.
See, Cass. I'm interested in cultivating. That's something that I want to be a focus, which is creativity. You know that is one of the things that I believe is my purpose on the earth is being creative, helping people unlock their own creativity. I think that some form or fashion, yes. I don't know what that looks like, but yes.
So Jake says, I'm back. Just went over to watch the first episode of Multifarious Geeks.
Oh, I guess I didn't make it private.
He didn't make it private. Tim was under the impression that he made that private, and it's very funny that it's not private. So,
hey, guys.
That's what Sunday lunch at James's house looks like. I have no idea how many times I swore in that video. Probably burned myself.
Zero. You swore zero times. I was very careful about that.
Okay, good.
It will continue to be a family-friendly.
Family-friendly.
Hey, family. Hi, guys. This is Family Friendly, and welcome to my Shake Shack.
My family is your family, and we are friends.
My family is your family, and we are friends. So you swore.
Mi familia es su casa. I don't know Spanish.
Your family is my house?
I don't know Spanish. I tempered that, okay?
Oh, wow. So, Jake, yeah, that's it. And that was me I was like, you know what? I'm documenting this. Oh, someone did.
Yeah, but that's family friendly.
You're right.
You can say that in a kids show.
It's nice to be among friends. Homestar Runner. You're right. You know what? Proven in court.
Yeah, we watched a lot of Homestar Runner in our formative years, so our kind of one of our go-to voices is certainly Homestar.
Aaron Nelm says like Smodco.
Yeah, he was saying like
exactly
the network,
like our version of that. But you know what it would be like? Take the positivity of AbTab and pour it into, instead of just tabletop RPGs, now you can talk about anything.
I think that's the best way to put it. I hadn't considered that. The idea is that a lot of people find this solace in something that's online, the Absolute Tabletop official group. And just the people that have joined it, the people that make up this group are so amazing, and it can be so positive and great sometimes. Well, a lot of the time, really. The idea is, like you said, specifically that feeling. Yeah. That plus documenting the process and not just serving a finished product is Multifarious Geeks.
Yeah. Gratitude, positivity, just that overall sense of community.
Quad Gaming instills confidence in me. He says, I've watched movies, listened to music, and looked at comics that you guys, Matt and Barker, have mentioned or talked about. I found some of my favorite bands that way. That's how it works. I wouldn't know a tenth of the music I do if Tim didn't show it to me, or my other family, or my dad didn't say, hey, look up that
one song.
That one about the
yeah.
And you find out. Exactly. You can find some of your favorite things from personal recommendations. So it's like we're giving personal recommendations.
Exactly.
But for everything.
So let's throw it to you. What do you want to see? That's usually the death knell of a channel. I'll just be real frank with you. When a YouTuber says, what do you guys want to see? It means they're not inspired, and that's okay. But it's usually like, that's not what this is. What I'm saying is I have almost 20 people here live right now. So why not talk to you guys and say, what do you want to see us do? We have plenty of ideas, but it's a coup, James. No. So, the other thing I'd like to do is a series of videos on like getting into comics 101.
Yeah.
Meaning, all right, check this out. You're going to want to get yourself a Marvel Unlimited subscription. It costs $9.99 a month. This course will be 1 month long. You only need to dedicate about 2 hours a week to reading the comics, but we will get you some really good comics.
Yeah. And
basically work people through some classic story runs so that you don't have to go looking and go, hey man, I really want to get into the X-Men. There's literally 8,200 issues.
Exactly. Like so many.
What should I read? And I'm like, well, there's a really good this run by Frank Quietly, and you definitely want to do Chris Claremont. And that's stuff that I just know because I've been reading comics since I was 12. So I want to share that knowledge and go, hey, I'll show you a Punisher comic that will surprise you with how insightful it is. Yeah. Will make you cry and love Darren. That sort of stuff. Yeah. And so it's like, hey, you want to get into comics? Here's how you get into comics according to us. But what do you say? Where did we miss it? Mm-hmm. Is there a comic we're missing? What's your favorite series right now? Who's your favorite artist? Who's your favorite writer? Movies, all that stuff. So that's the idea. But what do you want to see? And I threw that out there, and I did not look at the chat.
So, well, you threw that out there, but somebody, Perry Folk said, Absolute Tabletop cookbook. And he said, I don't know why I just said that, but must be some of your ideas bleeding together in my mind. Follow me on this. I know you want to say something. Follow me on this. So then somebody else said, Ethan said, I'd buy it, food for the PCs, because that's half of DMing. And I was like, no, guys, you don't understand. We have an actual cookbook. Rob Daniels said, we need this cookbook. There's an actual cookbook that Tim had the idea to write and that we published through Absolute Tabletop called Cookbook of the Realms. And it is a D&D 5e supplement that has mechanics and stories and everything for D&D, but it also has real recipes that you can make in real life for some food that we make.
And so I will take this a step further. I'm going to tell you a story. When we were writing this, I thought it was going to be huge. I thought it was going to be I'm not kidding you. I thought it was going to be a crossover hit. And I seriously had in my mind like this vague idea that I might be on Good Morning America. I'm not kidding.
Hey man, eventually.
And Matt said, Tim, sweetie, Chris Perkins isn't even on Good Morning America. Oh man. So that was the idea is I was like, what? I would love to. But so, okay, let's take that a step further. You want a cookbook? I have been writing my own food journal where I'm trying recipes.
Yeah.
So there's a Minotaur Fitness for Geeks healthy geek cookbook that could be on its way next year.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, hey, I'll show you a Philly cheesesteak that has like 320 calories and will just be amazing. And you won't feel like garbage when it's done. So we've got that angle. James is, as he said, he's becoming an accomplished cook.
I was gonna say, I have a lot of my own recipes that I've put together.
Right,
the stuff like I make at home, the stuff we
spinach salad you made me.
Yeah,
it's just mind blowing.
Just a bunch of stuff,
and so all that stuff. But that's something we could easily slide in here, where it's like recipes.
Yeah,
like, and it doesn't all have to be like it's Boba Fett spinach salad, you know. Yeah. But it's like, look, no, geeky, and in fact, let's define. This is what I was thinking.
Ready? No. Just to cut in because a few people. So Thomas Carpenter said two things. He said, "I'd love to see y'all talking about classic novels or something, stuff like The Odyssey, Charles Dickens, Les Mis, Shakespeare, and all that. Like a great novels reading list."
Okay. I'm putting these in my phone, by the way.
Yeah, that's absolutely stuff that we'd be interested in doing. But then he went even further, and this one I think is even better.
Go on.
Learning to play / make music. Pretty sure you guys do that, right? So. Just today, my brother Thomas was here. Tim plays the guitar a whole bunch, and my brother Thomas also does. I noodle, but compared to them, it's not a joke. But we plan on spending one weekend a month, one Sunday a month when we get together, jamming and writing music.
Writing songs.
Because that's something we've wanted to do for a long time. And we kept trying to get together about it. I'm like, absolutely, we would film some of that and show it. Because we were just today going through the process of they were going back and forth.
Here's the riff. Like here would be the chorus. What about the bridge? No, it needs to be catchier. What are the drums would be, you know, et cetera. I have far more experience writing and producing music than I do writing RPGs, which sounds ridiculous, but because we've done 20 books, but I've played thousands of hours of music live and in a studio setting. That's what I was doing before we did, before I had a kid, really. So yeah, sharing that portion. And so we have our little band is called Of the Vast Ocean, James's YouTube channel name. And it's Of the Vast Ocean. That's our band. And we're like, we would show you guys like, hey, here's some music we're writing. And even perform it and then put it out there.
Yeah.
Hey, here's an album.
Same kind of thing. Yeah.
Like just anything that we want to do. And what I was going to do, keep track of the comments because I don't want to lose those. But to me, I think it's defining what geek really is. And here's what it is. It's someone who is unusual in a positive way.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. And so the idea is for me, our mantra would be like, be unusual. Be unusual. Be noteworthy. Be interested. Sharp, continuous thought. So any way that we can share that process and connect with people in the things that they want to create is a home run to me.
Yeah.
And
to me, it's geek is a word that now gets thrown around a lot, but specifically to that same point, to me, it's efficiency and it's using your time as well as you can and managing it. It's making the best decisions with the information you have. I recently bought a car for the second time and I learned a lot, but I learned a bunch of stuff that I wish I had known earlier.
Yep.
And if I had rushed into the decision, wouldn't have known and would have been in a position that I wasn't as comfortable with, where now, because of a few little things, like realizing that I could put this on this credit card and do this and move it around so that my payment's lower, but I didn't have to down. It's a whole thing. But that information is stuff that I wish I had a YouTube channel to go to say, oh, I'm buying a car soon. Let me watch this video about
Dude, because think about it. And here's the thing. Because I think that people who aren't, and this is just the truth, if you're not a visionary enough to know, you have to assume that we'll execute it well.
Yeah.
You have to just, and if you don't operate under that assumption, then we'll just have to prove it to you, which is fair. Because it could sound too schizophrenic.
Yeah, exactly.
It won't be. Because that's what the Multifarious Codex is for. It's like, because again, it's taking the word geek to a higher level, and it's like, no. It's someone who doesn't take the first answer they're given.
Yeah.
It's someone who will say something because they want to stir an idea or push. It's someone who will learn, seeks to learn. And so that's the idea, is that having dude, you go on there, the Multifarious Geeks Guide to Car Buying. Hey, here's what I learned. Here's what James learned. I think something that James and I excel at just naturally, I think we're good teachers.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's another thing too, is taking information that would normally be not fun to digest or interesting.
Yeah.
We would find a way to top gear it and make it tabletop terror style buying a car.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Again, just anecdotally and our own personal experience, it won't ever be a commercial. It will be, this is what I did. This is what I use. This is what I do. This is how I live. And I've learned that from seeing how other people do it, the way Tim does it. Like I said, Matt Click does this all the time. And I like to get him back on those two every once in a while. Like, throw out a little tip for him and he's like, that's a game changer. A lot of little stuff like that where that's the only way you learn about that stuff. The first time I bought a car, my dad was very integral to the process because he had done it quite a few times. If I didn't know the things he told me, same thing. I would have been potentially in a position that I wouldn't have been in, that wouldn't have been as comfortable. I would have had a car and that would have been fine. But like you said, being a geek is not taking the first answer you're given and not, collecting as much information as you can so that you can make good decisions and feel good about them. That's like one of my favorite things that I feel like I've gotten so much better at in the last decade is making a decision. And when I begin to feel something like buyer's remorse or something else, just a general concern or anxiety that maybe I didn't make the right choice, I can go back over the things, the steps I went through to get there. And even that little thing is like, well, that just makes my life better. I recently bought a car and I feel great about it. Whereas the first car I bought, for the first 3 months, I was, afraid I made a mistake.
Sure.
Even though there was nothing wrong with it. So,
yeah,
I don't know, just kind of a lot of stuff like that.
Dude, and just having, so like, here's something that Rob said. He said, I love that you guys are so inclusive and willing to bring us into your family. We're not fans and followers. We're friends you haven't hung out with yet. And that's exactly right. And I think it's so true where it's something may have been said before, but not by us and not with you replying.
Yeah.
What we're looking to do is create new conversations, create new experiences that wouldn't exist otherwise. And I'm really excited about it. And there are a couple of examples of things. It's like, there are quality of life things that I use for myself in my home.
Yeah.
And when people find out, they're like, you could do that.
That's one of my favorite things in the world.
Not?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. For me, I'm like, no, this is what I do to do X. And it's changed my life. But now that's the status quo. There's nothing below, the time when I learned that. And I want other people to have that experience that I love having. Like I said, I try to go tit for tat with Matt because he's always got like a cool Amazon product that's like, oh, I bought this and it's only $5 and it does this and it changed everything. Or it's just, I love that. And I love the idea to be able to, like you said, have that conversation with other people and potentially get that. You know what I mean? To talk about stuff that somebody says, hey, this is how I did X. It'll change your life.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm into that.
You're also going to find other geeks who their fascination is something we would never know about.
Exactly.
So we do a lot of media related things. So, graphic design, photography, that long list of sort of like what you'd consider a media company. But if there was someone and they were gardening geeks, I would love to have them on and be like, all right, what's the brass tacks?
Exactly.
What's the myth?
How do I start? What is, you know what I mean? Like, how hard is it really? Can I really grow tomatoes without, spending hundreds of dollars or reading a book? Or
what are the top 3 things? What's one plant that I can't kill?
Yeah.
That would, whatever. What's the easiest thing to grow in Florida? And just learning that stuff because I want to have a garden with my family.
Yeah.
And if I can figure out how to do that more quickly and easily through this, and then share it with you and then put it in the Multifarious Codex where it's like starting a garden.
Exactly.
It's like you become
that simple.
Yes. So that's the idea. Let's see. Thomas Carpenter, did a couple of my comments disappear or is that just my phone being weird?
No, I think they're there. We mentioned you mentioned the classic novels. You mentioned the playing the music.
Yep. Here's something. He said, maybe get into some philosophy or something, and name some names. Here would be my hard stop. Unless it comes up very naturally and peripherally in conversation, no politics, no religion, no philosophy.
Yeah.
Here's why. Those are usually topics that are polarizing. They become less of a conversation.
Yeah. But
again,
that's the thing. I think that that's the important distinction. Again, this is the process. So Tim and I haven't talked about this. It reminds me of, I would want to do it in the style of the way Dan Carlin does Hardcore History, where he says, I'm not a historian. I'm just presenting to you the facts that people have written. People disagree about this, but here it is. And the way that Jeff Daniels does the news in Newsroom, where they do the Newsroom 2.0, where the idea is they just report the news. The idea is I would love to have a conversation about the two-party system and how it was created in our, in the U.S., that we have.
That's a fair point.
But we wouldn't talk about, our own leanings, or I think this, or, it wouldn't be that, but it would be, here's why things are the way they are. Because that's another thing. We're just having that knowledge of, like, some people don't know how decisions are made in the U.S. government. And whether that's the failing of the American school system, or you just want us to talk about it.
And maybe even educating people on, like, what's the best way to register to vote?
Exactly.
Like, we're not going to take a side. You vote for who you want to. But if you feel like you want to be a part of the process, here's how it works. Here's why you should go out and do it, or shouldn't. And maybe there you go. That's a 1v1 me IRL.
Yeah.
You should never vote 1v1 me IRL. And you know what, too? This is just real. Those kinds of videos will get tons of views and get the channel name up there, which does well for other content.
Yeah, exactly.
And as long as they're interesting and they focus on thankfulness and humble and inclusion and those, then it's also good to have that sort of stuff floating around on the internet.
People are talking about how it seems like some of their comments are disappearing, but I'm seeing them on PC.
It might be the phone.
Yeah, something he mentioned being on mobile. But another thing is, as far as philosophy, that's a good way to say that it's unlikely that we will ever talk about something we're not interested in. Not to say we're not interested in philosophy, but the idea is eventually I will read a book that covers philosophy. And then I will say, Tim, you'll never believe what I learned about what Plato said about X. And then
or
we'll
how
talk about
this.
Exactly. So it's unlikely that I would say, okay, well, I'm going to read about Plato because I don't know and whatever, and then come talk about it, and it'll be like, this is what we think. But it will be the same kind of thing where I'm like, well, if somebody suggested that or wanted it, Tim and I would read about it. And we would have our own conversation about what it is. Now, we're not going to be breaking any, not psychological, what is it? Philosophical boundaries. We're not going to be exploding your brain, but sometimes I feel like I have insights that I'd like to share with someone that aren't necessarily mind-blowing, but like, did you ever think about, ready?
Yeah.
One of my favorites? You are now breathing manually. Screw you right up. Now what? Now all you're thinking about is you're breathing. I love talking about that kind of stuff and why that happens.
I was just going to say, what in your brain triggers that? Why does that work? And talking about, it's like, you are now breathing manually. Why does that work? And how can you apply that to something that will help you in your everyday life?
Exactly.
If you're afraid of something, or how does the neuro triggers of what your brain, and of course, listen, here's the thing. It's armchair science. It's going to be armchair philosophy. But the bottom line is, I think that with the information we have in front of us, we'll do a good job of letting you decide.
Exactly.
And presenting it well. And I think that's something that James and I are good at.
So more people have joined, 2 people specifically. Live and Let Dice said, getting off of work and joining at this time seemed like it was unwise. And Grant Garrison said, you guys haven't said bugbear at all in an entire 3 minutes. I've been listening. I'm very disappointed. To catch everybody up.
Grant, stop being such an RPG bugbear.
To catch everybody up, Tim and I are talking about a new project we're working on. Tabletop Terrors isn't going anywhere. But we are starting a new sort of content network, starting with a YouTube channel, potentially a Twitch channel, some sort of web presence, called Multifarious Geeks, where we talk about our own lives, lifestyles, and kind of what it is to be a geek, and share in our own experiences with you. Basically, Tabletop Terrors, but instead of RPGs, sort of life and the things that we like, the things we don't like, the reasons, guides, all kinds of stuff like that. Basically an umbrella we can put all the conversations we have that we don't record in.
Take Absolute Tabletop and expand it to include everything geeky and life hacks, and you've got what we're shooting for. Because what it's doing truly is it's taking and it's recording the process of how we were living our lives anyway. Yes, Grant, multi-geek. There's a long story there. There's a long story there, Mr. Opt5. But yes, Multifarious Geeks, you could colloquially call it multi-geek, sure.
Oh, so Live and Let Dice said, that doesn't explain all the politics and philosophy shenanigans for the past 5 minutes. it came up that we were talking about the ideas. We're documenting currently the process.
Sure.
Tim and I haven't really talked about exactly what the channel will be. And just to update you, we were talking about some of the things we might touch on the channel and some things we might not, and sort of the kind of thin lines between some of those.
And someone said, why don't you talk about philosophy? And I said, for me, I would stray away from philosophy, religion, and politics as a general rule unless something specific came up. And that's why we're talking about it.
And yes, we kind of went on a long tangent. You've met us. That's kind of what happens.
I love you too, Grant. In fact, message me on Facebook. Obviously, we have something going on. Let's see what's going on. There's a Grant. Yeah, I won't go into that story. That's actually its own episode.
It is.
In fact, Grant, we should have you on
for sure
and interview you because Grant is one of the biggest multi-geeks that I know. So the other cool thing, and I think we'll probably wrap up with this, which is it's also going to be something where immediately I want to start making more ultra carnivorous episodes.
Oh, gosh,
that's where James and I used puppets. I don't know if you've seen this before. We have a puppet show that we've done, and it was awesome. But
it was so much fun.
Here's what happens. We shoehorned it into Tabletop Terrors, and honestly, it's just really tough to have two puppets talking about RPGs all the time.
Yeah.
But if they were like, so tell me about The Force Awakens, I could come up with some zingy one-liner. So you'll definitely see that. We had a webcomic that I want to get started back up that uses old public domain comic book art. And I called it the Tin Age of Comics.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Which I'm extremely proud of that name. The Tin Age of Comics. And it's basically just writing a webcomic because we don't need an artist.
Exactly. Yeah.
A lot of this stuff was bootstrapped because we had to figure out ways of doing things like George Lucas in the desert gluing a shick on the side of C-3PO's teeth. Google that. I don't know.
So yeah, and that's one of the main things is Tim and I, when we originally did that, we made a puppet show. We, like he said, we're doing a comic. We had a blog. We had all this stuff, but we didn't know the important part, which was connecting with people.
Yes.
We didn't. That's what we talked about earlier, where we're not creating it all in a vacuum. It will be highly collaborative and talking to people, and just this is what we learned. It may not even be correct, and we want to know what you think about it. Because that was the part that was missing from when we were making all this stuff that nobody cared about.
Right. And that's the thing, man. I think there's no correct. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
This is what we learned so far. And so now we're going to take it and we're going to say, all right, let's do something else. What's something else that we can all do together? And tabletop RPGs is something that will stay a huge part of my life and my family and my income even. Sorry, we're wrapping up. We're blowing through that time.
Yeah.
So
that one came out of nowhere. Cassie must be on in the other room.
Yeah.
Empathy.
But the idea is that, let's figure it out. Let's do this thing. So when will you see more? Probably consistently, immediately. I don't know. Probably a lot more micro content, short form content, short videos, different stuff like that. We're documenting the process. So if I'm having truthfully, if I'm like, hey, I'm going to try to design a logo, I might go live and stream my screen and just work through that and hang out.
Yeah.
This whole thing is going to be about figuring that stuff out. So,
so Ethan said, any chance you guys can do more of these talks? I love it. The Sunday afternoon talks are so great. So
100% chance.
Yeah. So Tim and I usually work on Sundays. I mentioned earlier that our schedules changed. A lot of stuff moved around and we hadn't for a while, but we're going to get back into it now. And so, yeah, absolutely, we will, both on Tabletop Terrors and our Multifarious Geeks channel. Again, if you're interested, in the description is a subscribe link. There's one video on the channel so far that we thought was not live, so watch it if you want to see.
Whoops, the dice.
Really documenting the process. But the idea is that we're going to do more of them, no question. That's what we're here for.
And then Josh says, did the Mend the First Break email thing end? Because I remember signing up for it and getting one or two around this time last year, but I haven't gotten any since. It did. It was cool, and I would love to get back to doing it, but that's the kind of thing that if we have to choose, I have to do content like this that is one and done. That sort of content, it required writing it, doing a quick edit pass, putting it into the MailChimp, getting art commissioned for it, and while it was a really cool idea, we shifted, and we can't reveal too much about it. We shifted it to another type of avenue where you'll be able to get that sort of content, but it is not going to be in an email. Just put it that way. So it didn't entirely die on the vine. It evolved. We took the heart of it and moved it to something else that we're working on, and hopefully we'll be premiering early next year.
Yeah.
So that's the idea.
And that will, he's talking about, you know, something with tabletop RPGs. That'll be an absolute tabletop thing, and hopefully you guys will really like it.
So we have exciting. Where can I get the podcasts? Which podcasts? Thanks for the opportunity to be a part of the journey. Thanks for being a part of the journey. Look, you're a part of it now. You're a multi-geek. You're a Tabtarian. You're a multi-geek. You're an Abtabian. It's like you got all your merit badges. Perry says, thank you for allowing us to be a fly on the wall. Thanks for wanting to be on the wall.
Exactly. That's the important part. Is so many times, I don't know, there's so much we had to figure out, even just to do this. Yeah. You have no idea how long it took us to figure out that one microphone in the middle worked better than about 1,000 other things. We've spent whole days, 4 hours at a time, trying to make sure that it works.
Right.
We've had sound problems. We have all kinds of ridiculous stuff. And we'd love to, like Tim said, document that and tell you, hey, this is why we have the setup we have. Right. These are all the things we went through to get here.
And the thing is that I was so hung up on production quality. And a lot of people will tell you that that's number one. And I don't think that's correct. I think that it's important that your audio is clear enough to understand and that your video is decent enough to view.
Yeah, yeah.
But truthfully, those days are gone for me. I would rather film a phone video. So the creator of Patreon, the person who invented and runs Patreon, when you join the welcome video, he shot it with his phone in his hand. Because you know why? That is the culture we're in right now.
Yeah.
That is the style of content that I'm more interested now than in a studio. And look, if you can build up to that where you have that and you have the time and the money, and that's fine. There's no reason not to do it, but it is no longer a barrier of entry or a source of my resources.
Exactly. That's the important thing, is it not at the expense of the content. Like we spent, like I said, even a couple Sundays years ago, when we were doing Tabletop Terrors, we had a green screen. We spent time figuring out the lights. We spent money getting lights. We found out why that didn't work, why that did work. The videos took a long time to render. It's the kind of thing where it's not that production quality isn't important, but you should, if you can make content that's not as great as the most perfect production quality, you know what I mean? If your content increases tenfold, correct, make that content with your phone if that's what
exactly. And Grant says, one mic in the middle. Genius. I think he's being facetious because I think that's like a classic podcasting, I think. But what we were trying is, listen, we had 2 mics on a USB going to a program that would then feed them as one feed into the audio recorder, which then feeded it into XSplit. And it was like,
you can imagine how many problems that created.
And then cancellation.
Specifically, the problem is we had 2 mics, and yeah, they were out of phase with each other, which means that instead of hearing one, you could tell that we had 2 mics because they weren't quite lined up.
So Grant says you should see my closet. So many light stands. Grant, I'm serious, man. We got to get together because you're my tech guy. You were. What I would love is the WebDM setup where they basically just sit down and talk. And they have, I'm not saying that you should do this for us, Grant, but what I'm saying is they sit down and talk legit. They sit down and talk. That's it. They fly because they don't live in the same state anymore. They fly, they spend a weekend, they record, and someone else edits it all together and posts it for them. Do you understand that that is like my second goal after owning a home? I own a home. My second goal is to have a person that does all that so that I can focus on making puppets.
Back to a trigger.
Tell me.
When you buy a car, you get a loan usually. If you're not buying a car with cash, you're getting a loan. The bank buys the car. They own the car. They have all rights to the car, and they're just giving it to you until you pay it off. That is not the case with a home. When you buy a home, you own the home. Yes. There is a mortgage on it, but it doesn't belong to the bank. Correct. And then will belong to you eventually. It's yours.
Yeah.
But the bank has the right to take it away if you don't pay for it.
Correct.
I was surprised by that. I am on the deed for my home.
No, yeah. So
but I am not on the title for my car.
Correct. They can come take that back. Grant said he wasn't being facetious. I don't know. I was talking about the mic thing. The mic. Exactly. Yeah. Grant, so here's what was happening. I would mute one and the other would sound awesome. I would mute the other. If you had both live at the same time, my mic picking up James would sound bigger and more echoey. Really so exactly what you're saying. I would have to do a post-production noise gate, and I had a professional quality one that I paid a lot of money for, and it worked, but it was all those steps versus just this.
And every once in a while, one of those pieces that you described earlier wouldn't work and you have to restart it. We'd spend 40 minutes testing
40 minutes testing it out and getting on there. And so it's like,
it just wasn't where we started streaming to YouTube and check it out. Now we're actually doing it instead of spending an hour trying to figure out which mic, which setting the mic should be on and what the game needs to be on.
But we're excited. We're excited about Multifarious Geeks. You're all multi-geeks now. Subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, the link is in the comments and you just click on it and it auto-subscribes you. Make sure to click the bell so that you get notifications when we go live. We will eventually start going live there. For a little while, we're going to shepherd things over, kind of hosting everything on Tabletop Terrors, and then eventually we'll start shifting over there so that you still get notifications and you can still be a part of it, et cetera, like that.
But again, to be clear, Tabletop Terrors isn't going anywhere. And probably soon, Tim and I were just having a conversation about 5-Minute RPG. He unlocked another thing, and you have a play test probably on this channel coming up. This is tomorrow, right?
So it's what we're going to do. We're going to record it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be live because I just want it to be very let your hair down. But we have a new system called the 5-Minute RPG. We were talking about it over lunch. James was frying up chicken and I'm telling him about mechanics. And that'll hit you pretty good.
Yeah, no, it sounded great. But I basically, I just wanted to let everybody know that we're absolutely still obviously doing Absolute Tabletop.
Dead Man's Guide to Dragon Grin is definitely going to be out in April. Drift Chapel will be out early next year. Shadows over Drift Chapel, our current Kickstarter. If you haven't kickstarted that now, then please do that. What if you guys release some Ronald Robot stuff? Exactly. Legitimately, we could do a webcomic of Ronald Robot and actually flesh it out. Here's the thing. Okay. This is casting way into the future, but you're all here now. If you're at the end of this video, I think you've earned it. The idea would be to sit and talk through, all right, what would a Ronald Robot, what would be the best platform?
Yeah.
Okay, would it be a Netflix show? Would it be like really talk it through? And then talk through. So if we do choose, so let's say it was a Netflix show or a web series, you literally talk through, okay, the first arc would be kind of this, whatever, you work that out. And the truth is, when you have something that done and ready, and you have a bunch of those lined up, then it's like, all right, which one do we want to try to do?
Exactly.
And then maybe, just maybe, if you have a solid enough structure, you try to kickstart it or do a Patreon that says, hey, if you want to see Ronald the Robot, the comic book for real, here it is. Here's the script. It's roughly done. We would just need funding.
Exactly.
And you can just build up to that, and we would show you the process so that the value you'd be getting aside from a Ronald Robot comic book is you'd be learning how we wrote and made the choices and figured out and decided the art of a Ronald the Robot comic book or Netflix show or whatever.
Exactly.
So that would be the idea, is using it as vehicles to eventually make some of this stuff exist.
Yeah.
An ultra carnivorous web series or puppets.
I was going to say, one of our most popular videos is how to play D&D. Imagine a channel where a lot of our videos are how to do X, and it's things people should know how to do. How to check your credit score for free. I'm like, that's a big part of my life. And I want everybody to know how I'm able to monitor it so closely.
Yep. I love that. I think Indiegogo is for kickstarting comics, right? I think you could use either.
Yeah, you can use either. A big difference of Indiegogo, real quick, is that you don't have to fund to get the money, and I think it can go past the day. So Kickstarter's all or nothing.
Yes.
Indiegogo, specific difference is
you get whatever you raise. Here's the other thing. Maybe doing a Kickstarter. If you're interested in doing a Kickstarter, we've done 3. We've learned a lot. And we're like, oh, okay, hey, here's how we've done it. This is what we learned. This is what we highly recommend you don't do. We can direct you to some resources on that. Add it to the Multifarious Codex. So, yeah, the main thing is Tabletop Terrors is not going anywhere. In fact, again, because I know some people are tuning in, we have some big things planned for Tabletop Terrors in Absolute Tabletop. You saw, we have our own little series of books that's coming out. Each of those is going to have a video. We have some stuff going on with Heroic Maps. But this can only make the waters rise, which raises all boats. Meaning, if we get super popular on a general geek channel, the crossover to Tabletop Terrors will be more. And then the crossover for AbTab will be more. You know what I mean? So that's the idea. The idea is that why not? We're already having these conversations. We're already making these notes for these projects. We're already doing this stuff. What if we have some for tabletop stuff specifically and then some for general geek stuff? But man, just like, and some people are talking in the chat right now about like financial information and how it's like, this is going to sound super boring. But again, you're going to have to follow the trust contract that we are not going to do anything crappy. And if we do, we'll say so. We'll pull it off the channel. Bottom line. It is stunning to me, the percentage of people that do not know how to balance a checkbook.
Yeah.
Because they don't teach it. And by they, I mean most educational systems in the United States. So if it's like, hey, here's some hacks. Here's what I use. Here's how to think of your budget.
Yeah.
In a simple, easy to digest, layperson's, not expensive way.
Exactly.
Like, try this.
Hey, this is just a good idea of how to do this. And like I said, credit score, buying a house, buying a car, you know, all of those things. How do you make big purchases? How do you plan for that? How do you, all kinds of things. And that'll just be one small part of it.
And if you ask yourself, why? Because those are the sorts of things that you need to have in line if you want to have any sort of creative life.
And they're all the things I wish I knew.
I know. It's true. But it's like, seriously, if you have your finances straightened out and you're able to get everything in line and purchase a home, not only are you now able to do something in your own home where it's like, we're in James's house, we don't have to move this stuff anytime soon, but the stress levels that go down. And it's just, to me, this is the next step of like, look, if exactly you said, if I knew this stuff, I would have got a head start. I probably would have owned a home 5 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if I would have just had somebody who could clearly articulate it to me and put it all in one place. And then when you reach out to a community, you get this piece of information. This guy's a tax lawyer. This guy, this. And by the way, and that's where the Multifarious Codex comes into play, where it's like, can you imagine how incredible it would be if you could just go to a place on the internet and be like, this is the best, most accurate, real person's resource to buying a house.
Yeah.
Also, this is the secret history of Spider-Man.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I guess that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, I think that's it. We're wrapping up here. I think we covered it. We basically said the same thing over and over for the few people that were watching, which is great. But yeah, I think that's the important part is we can't wait to make all kinds of content for everybody. And hopefully somebody finds it interesting. Hopefully it helps them. Something similar to what I said is so many things, so much of this knowledge has been so hard won. And, you know, I wish I knew this better or that better, all kinds of things that if one single person benefits from the one very specific niche thing I make a video about or that we talk about, it'll be worth it. If one person, the whole process of buying my house was ridiculous. And I can't wait to tell you guys about it.
I know. And just the things I learned, like, I don't want to get too deep into it, but the fact that like one of the most important purchases that I made was our home warranty and how much money it saved us up front. And sorry, it was a little bit of money up front, but it's like, basically it's insurance for your house. And I didn't know it existed.
Exactly.
Luckily, I had an incredible realtor. In fact, I'm excited to pull my realtor into this. I bet he would let us interview him and answer all kinds. So basically we would have our stuff, and then do like a side interview. The thing that excites me is that the way this it's unfolding like one of those 3D Tesseract boxes where it's
like the GameCube logo.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, but the idea is that I'm really excited about the fact that before everything, every topic, every video, every concept was always had to be tabletop. I can involve so many intelligent people in my everyday life in this and be like, hey, or even like local comic shops and things like that. It's way more attractive to go, hey guys, we would like to do an episode of our podcast here. If that would be cool with you, all we would need is Wi-Fi and we would promote your store. And just get people to know more about the podcast. Like that would just be so cool. It's a lot tougher to do that with just a tabletop thing. They're like, oh, well, our tabletop night's Thursday. So you'd have to come Thursday and talk to Ben. He's our DM. And it's like, no, we're just geeks. Can we come in here? Can we interview you? How did you start a comic shop? Why did you start a comic shop in this economy? Like talking that through, what are the biggest challenges you're finding? What's your best seller right now?
Exactly. Yeah.
And just talk to local comic shop and just find out. And so we got to get with our buddy Todd about this too. I guess that'll be it.
I think that's it.
So here's the final thing I was going to ask you. Do we just make it the toast that we do at the end of everything? So does Multifarious
like
Geeks,
when the world ends, like at the end of everything, you will see us.
May you like half of you as much as you love, and may you love half of you as the other half likes. Like, but do we do our toast at the end of everything, or do we come up with a new toast, or do we not do a toast? I like to have rituals. I'm a very sentimental person. I like rituals. I like, so obviously we get Tabletop Terrors. We're going to do the Taptarian toast here at the end, but we need to think like,
I guess the answer is we'll have to figure it out.
Right. Cause I'm like,
I like the idea of having a different one.
I do too.
So we just got to come up with it.
You know what I mean? And then at the beginning, is it so let it be written, so let it be done? This is Multifarious Geeks.
Maybe
I don't know. Keep it, and then at the end, you do like, no, this is, but no, because it's the Tabtarian toast. I don't know if I could change that. I don't know. I don't know. Already, this square inch of screen has enough home buying tips.
Yeah, people are helping each other.
Where I'm like, yeah,
first
so
time
like
home buyer stuff and all that. Yeah,
this is Multifarious Geeks right here, live in action. Here, a different one for moving forward. I agree. So the Tabletop Terrors will always have the Tabtarian one.
We might start with a similar one to the Tabtarian one when we do a Multifarious live stream, but
yeah,
eventually we'll find, again, it's about documenting the process. It was years before we had the toast that we have now for Tabletop Terrors.
It's true.
I don't understand how we lived without it for so long.
Exactly. So. You know, so I guess we'll end it with a Tabtarian toast and then just leave that as a question for another day. In fact, if you have an idea about anything we said, put it in the comments and we'll try to answer and figure that stuff out. But you ready?
Yeah, sounds good.
You got
a little left here.
You caffeine-free diet soda. it's like breaking in on your favorite star and seeing they wear a wig.
May you mend the first break.
May you kill the first snake.
And may you conquer everything you undertake.
Sláinte.
Even if Diet Coke gives you cancer.
It doesn't.
But it might. But we don't know yet.
1v1 me IRL.
Next week on Multifarious Geek. We probably won't do that, but one day.
We should. That might be the one. So, all right. See you later.